Hello, how is everybody today? It's a beautiful weather day, finally in Auburn after another hot, what do we call it, Indian summer, I think? But anyway, we're cooling down today and I'm going to stick with that. Welcome to AAUW Conversation and Connection. AAUW stands for the American Association of University Women, and this is a way we get to get our issues and our voice heard out in the community. It also gives our chance for our members to see the video and get to know the whole organization better and people that I interview and talk with. We are a nonprofit organization and primarily education and equity for young girls, but everyone, of course, is always involved. So with that, I have to start out with the horrible news. Oh, my name, Sharon Watson Hamilton, if I didn't say that. Okay, my Niners lost. Let's just get it out there right at the beginning. They lost by 1 point, and I would say a swear word in there, but I have good friends that don't like to swear. Anyway, then we turn right around and we play tomorrow night, Thursday, 4-day break, and we play in Seattle. Oh my goodness, I think I'm going to be heart-stricken Thursday night. Anyway, we're going to root for the 49ers for a Thursday night game against Seattle. So with that, last month I had Natalie from the Hip Hop Congress talking about trying to get young people involved in the election process, civic affairs. Not an easy task, I will say. I think young people, at least in my situation when I was young, a million years ago, it wasn't the top priority to be involved. Although I will say it was more of a priority in our schools at that time. We cut articles out of newspapers, we wrote essays. It was a little more involved in that respect, I think, than kids are doing today. Anyway, Natalie, Hip Hop Congress, I was honored to be part of a moderator at a roundtable meaning that I was so impressed. Here are young people, 18 to 25-ish, and there were maybe 30 of them, I'll say. But we had we had 3 people from Auburn City Council, 2 from the supervisor's race, and 1 from the state assembly race. And they came and gave of their time and their thoughts and answered questions from these young people. I thought that was just really fantastic. So there's a lot of good in the political world, even though it feels oftentimes, this is just my editorial comment, sometimes a little contentious and uncivil. And we will get back to it. I think it's been there before. We will get back to civility, and the way we do that is talking to all kinds of people and all kinds of views and engaging in good conversation. So with that, part 2 of covering the elections, I have my guest today is Norma Sexton. Hi, Norma.
Hello.
She's a woman of many, many hats. She's not only an AAUW member, but she is a member of League of Women Voters, as well as tell me your story a little bit, how you got to Auburn. Just tell me a few of your hats. We don't have to go into too many, but the one I'm so happy about, not only is she civic-minded and education-minded, but she's also the soul of the community in that you're in the symphony, Auburn Symphony. I love that. So tell us your story, Norma.
Okay. Well, I moved to Auburn in 2011 after growing up and establishing myself in Bakersfield, California.
Ooh.
So moved up here with my husband, and so I was a pharmacist in Bakersfield. Worked in retail, worked in long-term care, and also home infusion pharmacy.
Wow.
So that's where I finished my profession and essentially retired from Bakersfield and moved up here. And so looking to get involved in the community, I joined AAUW, but I really was important in finding an orchestra to play in. And so I was so fortunate to find Auburn Symphony and they welcomed me in, and I've been a member there for these past 13 years.
And what instrument do you play?
Oh yes, I play the cello, and I play, and I also have a few students, half a dozen students or so. And I am a teacher at heart also, and so I have students of all ages on the cello, adult beginners, young beginners. I just got a new student. He's in the 2nd grade, and he's doing wonderfully. He's got
Is the cello bigger than him?
There's a reduced size.
Okay.
And he sits on a really tiny chair too.
Okay.
It's so cute.
Love it. I love it.
So that's a good thing. And I've also, a year later, I joined the Folsom Symphony.
That's right. You're in both
so
of
I
them.
do play in both orchestras.
Did you do that when Peter Jaffe was in with both of them, or did you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
He got a lot of you, I think, involved in both of you, right? But you're not only just a cello player, but aren't you the head cello?
Well, assistant principal.
Okay, assistant
Principal.
Okay.
But I also am serving right now as the music librarian for for Auburn Symphony.
Okay.
And so I obtain the music and distribute it to the musicians, and then collect it.
That's a huge job.
It is a huge job.
You have to send away. You have to get rights, I'm assuming, to certain pieces, and oh wow.
So
wow.
that's an aside, but yes, that's one of my ways of serving the orchestra.
Yeah.
To coordinate
They have
the
to
music.
love you. Anne Brown must love you. I love Anne Brown. So okay, that's the symphony. Now, I have worked with you in the primary. This was an election year, the primary in March, I believe, and so, and now our elections are happening now. They're open election at this point. But Norma, I wanted to talk a little bit about ways people vote. That changed significantly this year, in that it's 4 days long. There's no polling place like we're used to. So I wrote down some of these. Do you have most of that information in your head?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So the Placer County Elections Office chose to go to the voter center model of elections. Instead of neighborhood polling sites where you have to go to your neighborhood poll site, it is a community-wide polling center that you can go to any polling center, and
In the county or in the state?
county.
In the county. Okay, that's all.
in the
Okay.
county. And you can bring in your mail ballot. The ballot that was mailed to your home is specific to your location, related to fire districts and
School
city
district,
school
yeah.
districts, all those. You can vote that and mark your ballot, and then bring it into the voting center. You just sign in, and then you get to feed that ballot directly into the scanner, and that is essentially being counted at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You can still mail your ballot back, or there are ballot drop boxes
Yes.
that will be opening as of yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw that.
And the last day to register to vote, if you haven't been, if you're not already registered, will be October 21.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
And you have two different varieties of vote centers. You have some that are open for 11 days. So those will be opening October 26th. And your sample ballot has the list of voting centers, and it's specified. There are, I believe, 7 11-day vote centers, basically in the larger communities, the elections office in Granite Bay and Lincoln, Rockland. There's a couple in Roseville, and there's one in Tahoe City. So there's those will be opening up.
So that
for the
means
scanners.
starting October 26th,
October
isn't it?
26th.
For 11 days prior to the November 5th cutoff to vote, you can take those into those particular centers.
Yes.
Okay, and watch your vote be scanned.
Correct.
Right.
Very good.
Okay, and then so you can mail it in. And I just, being an old postal worker, it does have to be postmarked by November 5th if you're just going to mail your ballot in. However, it has to be received by the 12th. I love my post office. I will never speak ill of them. I can't imagine sending anything across the country for less than $1. But anyway, having said that, allow yourself some time because it has to be received by the 12th. That sometimes if a gazillion people put in a lot of mail on one day, it's conceivable that it might not get received. So be sure not only the postmark, but that you allowed enough time. So my recommendation is always to mail a little early. Norma, clarify this for me. I think I'm accurate, but let's talk about it a minute. So let's say I mail in my ballot on, I don't know, let's say the 20th of October. I just mail it in. I have plenty of time. It's going to get there. They do, and even like you said, the drop-off centers, they count it, but it is not published until after 8 o'clock on the 5th.
Correct.
And if I recall this, the reason for that is we would be way behind in counting the ballots if we all waited till 8 o'clock on the 5th of November. So they count them earlier, but the results are not known by anybody until after 8 o'clock. Is that accurate information?
Yes, nothing is released. No results are released prior to 8 p.m. on the 8th.
Yeah.
5th. November 5th.
Yeah. Did I say 8th? I'm sorry if I did. Yeah, November 5th. So 8 o'clock. And that's just, I think it's a point because I think people sometimes think, well, if they count it, how do we know, if we already know those results, I don't need to vote or something like, or I better vote because it's, so it's not going to work that way. They will count them, but we won't know any of the results. So the other thing right now, what we can talk about, you can track your ballot. Do you have that information handy? There's a website. And I got something in email, I think, me personally, the other day about how I can go to register and it'll track my ballot. I might have put you on the spot there because I don't recall either.
No, there is tracking of your ballot. Yes, I signed up for that. And
Is this it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right.
It's,
cool.
Where's my ballot? Where is my ballot? Apostrophe. Make sure, not where is, but where's my ballot? I received my ballot yesterday in the mail, but I had received a notice on the day before or 2 days previously that it had been mailed, and so I've now received it, and it's in my possession now. And then as I would submit it for counting either through a drop box or if you go to a voting center, the day that you submit your ballot, you will the county reports that, and then we get a notification. I would get a notification that's saying your ballot has been received and counted.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It's a process that's daunting to me, but they can do so much, and they upgraded a lot of their equipment to do that. Okay, let's see what else. So I count 4 ways you can mail your ballot in, and by the way, everybody in California gets a mail-in ballot. You can vote in person, meaning take your ballot to either a voting center or on election day itself, and scan it through yourself. You can drop off starting yesterday, right? You can just drop off. There's 31 boxes, I think, in the county.
Quite a
Sound
few,
right?
yeah.
So if you see one of those and you want to drop, they do empty them every night, and they're very secure. It's kind of, I don't know. It seems like nothing is secure anymore. But anyway, it is. And I love Placer County, and I'm so proud to be part of the whole process. And you are head over heels. Anyway, and then the fourth way to vote is actually vote on November 5th. Take your ballot in. You can scan it yourself. I believe, Norma, they could come in. Let's say I don't have a ballot. Or I've lost my ballot. The dog ate it, whatever. I can come in and say, I don't know where my ballot is. I still want to vote.
Mm-hmm.
What's the process on that?
We have been set up with electronic access to your location, your address. With your address, we can pull up a ballot electronically and print out a hard copy ballot for you to mark and then run through the scanner. So at all of the voting centers, either the 11-day or the 4 days, we have the electronics there and the printing materials to print your exact ballot. And then you can vote it at that time.
Okay. So that always opens, so if I'm a criminal and I'm lying, I mailed my ballot the same day that I'm walking in to get this ballot. Do you know what happens? Because that's always, people are saying, well, that could happen, and is it counted twice?
No, it would not be counted twice.
Mm-hmm.
If a person comes in, the computer tells us if a ballot has already been received. Now, if they mail it the same day, that may not be it there.
One of them's going to come in first, though.
One of them's going to come in first,
Mm-hmm.
and the one that arrives first is the one that will be counted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The computer does flag that there has been a ballot received,
Mm-hmm.
and we can inform the voter that you have a ballot has been received in your name.
Oh, you could do this at the polling place, you're saying.
Polling center.
Right then when I go in and I say the dog ate it, but I'm lying, and it'll pop up if I mailed it a couple days and the elections
has already
hasn't
been received.
Got it.
The computer shows that it has been voted.
Okay.
At that point, if you demand another ballot, we can do a provisional ballot.
Mm-hmm.
That would be your ballot, and if there was no ballot received previously, that one would be counted.
Okay.
If you demand it.
Yeah, and we're not going to fight them on that as poll workers. We're just okay. We
You
see the red
more
flag.
Paperwork?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. But it is. I think those are questions that we get kind of asked on occasion, working the polls. So now I'm going to wrap this part of the thing up by telling folks that you work all 4 days of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th of November. Long days. She works all those hours. 3 of those days are 8-hour days, and the other one is 12 hours. However,
11 hours.
Yeah, 11. Yeah. So that's just amazing. I work a little stint as part of an organization. I work 4 hours a couple times. It's nothing really. But your job is huge.
So I am serving as a senior election aide, and we are assigned to a specific location, and the senior aides are required to be there all the time, whenever the polling site is open. As a member of a service club, we are able to have our service club members come in for shift work.
Yeah.
Now, there are some that are staffed by community members, not related to a service organization, and they are there all day
Just as
for whatever the time period of that location is. So, as a member of a service club, it's a great opportunity to do community service and see some of the people in the community. So I'm willing to give of my time to do that.
Yeah, that's love you. And I give myself for a few hours here and there, but
Thank you.
I love it. It's always interesting. It's challenge. It can have its challenges, but I believe wholeheartedly in our county and Ryan Rocco's team at the elections. So
yes, when I was down in Bakersfield at my church, there were several church members that were election workers, poll workers, had the poll set up in their garage.
Aww.
And when I moved up here, there was something announced and said, we need poll workers. I said, sign me up.
Right.
And so I've been doing it ever since I moved up here.
That is
and so giving of my time for that.
Yeah. She has so much time. Anyway, okay. So the nuts and bolts of this little show is the measures. And so Norma knows a lot more about these. I kind of reviewed, but there's 10 different propositions, right? And 5 of which you called...
There were 5. There's 2 numbering systems, if you notice. The first 5, numbers 2 through 6, are measures that had been through the legislative process, and they are then submitted to the voters for their approval.
Okay.
Bond issues, the legislature cannot obligate the state to sell bonds to raise money, but they can submit it to the voters for their approval, and it requires a 2/3 vote of the voters to approve the selling of the bonds for fundraising. So that's the bond measures.
That's 2 through 6.
Yeah,
Right.
there's 2 bond measures in those 5. The other 3 are constitutional amendments. So these will amend the California Constitution, and so the legislature cannot do that by themselves. They have to submit those to the general public.
Okay.
For approval. Also requires a 2/3 passing vote in order to be approved. The other 5 measures, 32 through 36, are citizen initiatives statutes. They were written by individuals and submitted directly to the voters of the state, and may pass with generally a 50 plus 1.
Yeah,
50%
I think
plus 1.
Was somewhere I read one was 55% was needed.
That's a little different.
Okay.
That is a legislative statute,
Okay.
Constitutional amendment that allows local measures to be approved by voters by only a 55% instead of the 2/3 requirement. Historically, there are many bond measures or local bond measures that may get a 60% approval rating by the voters, but they didn't meet the 2/3 level for approval, and so those bond measures failed at that point.
Okay.
But if the if the state allows, and this would go through the constitutional amendment because that's where it's written, the 2/3 versus 55, a local bond measure could, like state school boards or local school boards, the bond could pass with a 55% of the voters,
Okay.
instead of having to reach that 67%.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, let's real quickly. We're not getting into too many nuts and bolts here, but just maybe passing. I tried to scribble down. So, starting with number 2, which is one of the legislative measures, right? It's bonds for public school and community college, and roughly $500 million annually for 35 years.
That's for repayment.
Yeah, that's a lot. I know.
Sure.
But it's a bond for schools and community colleges. It's mostly, Norma, was it mostly for upgrades and constructions? A lot of our
upgrades.
Yeah.
The state budget is used for the running of the schools,
Right.
but no money is there for upgrading the facilities, providing transitional kindergarten classrooms, providing science classrooms, and different things. So these are for upgrades that the school districts don't have any
A little sidebar.
funds.
I might be putting you on the spot. How is this monitored? How do we know? That seems to always be who's auditing these bond funds? Do we just have to hope that they're being used where they're supposed to be used? Because sometimes I feel sometimes the state goes, we'll put it into the general fund and then we'll do what we want with it.
It is not into
It's
the
not
general
that.
fund.
Okay.
No, it is restricted, and it's like any proposal for request for funding. There is a proposal form that would be filled out and submitted, and the schools that are seeking these funds, have to submit their proposals and how they would be used.
Yeah. Okay, that's okay. And California has, in my opinion, one of the, maybe statistically we don't always come out on top, but what a phenomenal education system. I'm sorry. I came here from Illinois and I was blessed to be here to have my education. Anyway, number 3, constitutional right to marriage and remove the old language of between a man and a woman. So, and I don't see anybody opposing this. It seems pretty straightforward, but and it's funny. I already thought we had that, but
it is. It's been approved and through the legislature, but there are still those old words in the Constitution that have to go back to the voters in order to be stricken from the Constitution.
Okay.
So that is why that is being submitted.
Okay. I think it's important, but it seems like a pretty easy one. Let's put it that way. Okay, number 4 authorizes bonds for safe drinking water, wildfire protection, and something else is in that. And that's $4 million a year for 40 years payback bond. That's a lot of money too. But we need all that. We need drinking water. And I think the wildfire protection, doesn't that have something to do with, because we've had so many fires, doesn't it have something to do with that, Norma? Do you know anything about it?
I don't know all the specifics, but again, it's a way of raising funds for hardening of the forests and replacing water pipes for safe drinking water. A
lot of infrastructure stuff.
Trying to raise money that we can have these improvements that we want to
Yeah.
have in place.
It's like living in an old house. All of a sudden, everything's old. Anyway, so that's another bond measure by the legislature that the voters need to pass. And those three need the 67%. Is that right? Okay. Okay. Number 5 allows local bonds for affordable housing and public infrastructure. Again, infrastructure. It's the one that needs 55% approval of voters. What I kind of money to be determined by local government.
Right. So this
might be a good thing.
This is the one that would change the California Constitution to allow local bonds, not statewide bonds, to be approved by 55%. It still requires 67%
on this. Oh, I gotcha.
In order for this one to be approved. To change it to allow the local bonds to be approved by a 55% vote. Okay.
And something that sparked, for those of us who own homes or property, those bonds, if that measure was to become where the local government could, and 55% of those local voters say yes, it is to be repaid with higher property tax. So that might be a tough pill to swallow after a while, especially if we're under the old Jarvis rule. We've gotten away with a lot. I don't know. So that's a tough one.
True. Yeah. It's your local measures, your local organizations, institutions. If they write the bond issue and the local voters approve it, yes, that's the way they raise funds.
Raise funds, property tax.
Is property taxes or sales taxes.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, number 6 removes involuntary, the servitude for incarcerated persons. This one flummoxed me a little bit too, Norma.
Yeah.
Help me. Aren't they already... I'm sorry, folks. I'm just being weird. I mean, they're in prison because they did a bad thing. And now we're going to not make them work for it? Is that what this means?
Supposedly there's trying to give the prisoners some rights of refusal of certain
jobs,
certain tasks.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't gotten into a big deepness there. But this has gone through the legislature, and the legislative process has debated this and worked on both ways. And again, it's a constitutional amendment, I believe, that they feel is appropriate to allow this situation to occur.
I know, it's tough. I mean, we've all made bad choices and some of us got caught and some didn't. But anyway, I also feel you gave up that right. So I don't know. I don't know where I fall in that one. Okay. So now we're into the citizen initiatives, which is number 32, and that raises the minimum wage. And there were no supporters in the ballot when I looked at this. Do you know much about this number 32?
I'm not sure who submitted this.
Yeah.
But apparently there's a group that wants the minimum wage increased.
But didn't we just do that?
The legislature has increased it, but apparently not high enough that some people
went to bat for it. Okay.
It was fast food workers.
Oh, and it was limited to that. Thanks, right. Phil. Phil's off screen. He's always our helper.
Thank you.
So so now they kind of want a more even playing field for everybody. Okay. All right. So number 33 expands local government to enact rent control, and it repeals a 1995 something that we have somewhere. So I guess, again, this kind of, for rent control, going more to the local hands than the state hands. Is that kind of how it reads?
Right.
Okay.
It would allow communities to establish rent control in opposition to only the state providing that rent
Breaks
control.
on it. Okay. Okay. So again, I think you have to do your research, and if you trust your local folks and more than the others, maybe that's the way to go on that. I don't know. Okay. Number 34, restructures. Oh, you'll know this one. Spending of prescription drug revenues. You'll know this. She's a pharmacist. She was a pharmacist. So it's only specific drugs, right? I don't know. It was hard to follow some of this stuff.
It's really hard to follow. I have a list here of how to evaluate propositions. And if you really start reading into this, you find out it was written against one particular organization.
Pharmaceutical organization?
No.
Okay.
And it's somebody disputing their way of using funding.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
something in the medical world did something bad, and we want to catch them. Okay, but it does impact spending of prescription drugs, which is a hotbed right now, with pharmaceuticals on a federal level coming under scrutiny a little bit, doesn't it? Or is this totally something different?
I think it's something different.
Different. Okay. All right. So we circle that one. Got to read more on 34. All right. So 35 provides permanent funding for medical services through Medi-Cal, I'm assuming, right? Medi-Cal. Okay, I'm not quite sure what that means either.
The writers of this proposition want to restrict a portion of the budget, the state budget, to be for Medi-Cal.
Okay.
Medicaid.
They don't do that now?
Not a specific portion.
Okay.
They do get funding, but it's not a specific
this is
dollar amount or percentage.
Okay.
So this would restrict funding, a portion of the state funding from property taxes, state sales taxes, to be directed only for this. And that really would tie the hands of the legislature in when they're doing their budget financing divisions. It would really be quite restrictive and tie the hands of the legislature.
Right, to where all monies are being dispersed, right?
Yes.
And I get that, and I can see where the way it's written sounds really good, but the way you explained it, maybe it needs to go a little further in understanding. Okay, all right. Number 36 is our last one. How are we doing on time, Phil? We doing okay? All right. Allows felony charges and increasing sentencing for certain drug and theft crimes. And this goes back to where you can steal $950 and then the next day do another $950, and they're misdemeanors. I think, Norma, help me out, this would make it a lower amount and they become felony charges. Is that more what this is about? Yeah.
Several years ago there was a push for reducing sentences for some of the misdemeanor levels so that we would reduce the population in the prisons. Well, with all the crime and retail theft, snatch and grabs, smash and grabs, sorry, the proponents want to eliminate those restrictions and essentially return a lot of these persons to prison. For more punishment.
Well, and maybe not more punish. I look at it as trying to do something about not making it so easy for us to be victims of crime.
Possibly.
That maybe it would be, okay, I'm going to go to jail for 5 years rather than I get out tomorrow and do it again. I don't know, but I don't know. Oh gosh, it's so hard.
When we feel endangered, we want to punish somebody.
Right.
And yes, they probably deserve punishment. But do we really want to be that harsh?
Right.
So I did, as a member of the League of Women Voters, the state level organization has their website, and one of the items on there is how to evaluate ballot propositions.
Okay.
So you want to examine what the measure seeks to accomplish. Do you agree with those goals? And is the measure seeking changes that are consistent with your ideas about government? Or do you think the proposed changes will make things better? A big question is, who are the real sponsors and opponents of this measure? Another one, is the measure well written? Will it create conflicts in law that may require court resolution or interpretation? Is it good government, or will it cause more problems than it will resolve? Does the measure create its own revenue source? Does it earmark, restrict, or obligate government revenues? If so, weigh the benefit of securing funding for the measure's program against the cost of reducing overall flexibility in the budget. Does the measure mandate a government program or service without addressing how it will be funded? Does the measure deal with one issue that can be easily decided by a yes or no vote? Or is it a complex issue that should be thoroughly examined in the legislative arena? And if the measure amends the Constitution, consider whether it really belongs in the Constitution. Would a statute accomplish the same purpose? Remember that all constitutional amendments require voter approval. What we put into the Constitution would have to come back to the ballot to be changed. And be wary of distortion tactics and commercials that rely on image but tell nothing of substance about the measure. So these are important items that
I almost wanted to go through it again.
want to consider all those. It's available on the web. I just typed in how to evaluate ballot propositions.
Okay, just Googled it?
Googled it.
Okay.
And it came up, and it was on the League of Women Voters of California website page.
Okay.
And there's a lot of thoughts that you can really evaluate these measures. It takes a lot of reading to get in there and find out some of this information.
Yeah, we all
it's worth our time.
It is worth our time, and yet, it seems like that's always an excuse. I don't have time. But our general election has a ton of information, and this is my editorial comment that I want to kind of close up with. Let's say you don't want to vote for the primary election, the head two guys, and please consider voting for local measures, local people, things that will impact you more thoroughly if you read this a little bit. You might not have to read it all, but let's say one measure that we talked about kind of interests you. Go in and read about it. Make sure it covers those bullets you just touched upon. I I don't know how we evaluate if they're well written. I still struggle over legalese. About the third positive, negative, are we voting for it or against it, or what? I'm voting to veto it means I'm not voting for it. I mean, I really do get befumbled. I have to read it 3 or 4 times to get the right message.
Mhm.
So
You don't have to vote for every issue.
That's exactly
Every
what
issue on your ballot.
Yep.
If you leave out a vote on a specific issue, it's still 2/3 of the voters that vote on that issue will determine
Right.
approval or not,
Right.
or 50% plus one.
Right.
So if it's confusing to you, maybe you want to avoid, voting on that issue. Not necessarily saying yes, not necessarily saying no, but just
Yeah.
abstaining on that issue.
Exactly. And
You
people
always
too.
have that choice.
Yeah. You don't have to vote for every candidate, every race. And that's something that's kind of brought up every once in a while. Well, if I leave something blank, does it the rest count?
Mhm.
Count. So we encourage you all to do the best you can. I love Googling that. Tell me what I have to Google again.
How to evaluate ballot
propositions. Okay, everybody get your Googles out.
Yes.
Because those are fabulous. Norma, that was really good.
And there are several websites that if you don't want to read this huge booklet from the state, there is a site called Ballotpedia.
Okay.
Now, that one's really extensive because it goes through ballot propositions and items from all states all across the country.
Oh boy.
There is another one, Cal Matters, which is local to California. And that one has a lot of information. And you can find the supporters and the financing for all these items, these ballot issues. League of Women Voters of California, and the league also puts out and sponsors an easy voter guide, which this is available on the web as easyvoterguide.org.
Okay.
And
Easy voter
has a
Okay,
little bit
Googling.
more condensed information.
Okay.
But those are some important sites that if you have some little extra time that you want to dive into some of these things.
Yeah, and we have
helpful.
time still. We're a month out, or a little less than a month.
Choose an issue a day and go research
and see
it.
how you do, and or something speaks to you. Find out all the sides of the story. So, man, there's a lot, and it's an important year to get out and vote. But like I said, if you only vote for things that you have researched and feel good about, then at least do that. Don't feel that you have to vote for everything and you don't know everything, because we want to be smart voters. We are going to heal our country by voting, so everybody get out there and vote. So, all right, I thank you all. We are done for the day. Go Niners on Thursday. You won't have this in time, but you'll know whether I'm crying or laughing in a couple days. And then really, happy voting, November 5th. You've got a lot of time to get in there and research it and be smart and take care of one another. Thanks.